My name is Clifford, a 56-year-old electrician from Portland. For 18 years, I believed I had the perfect life with Amanda and our teenagers Jackson and Lily. I worked overtime, built our home with my bare hands, and never questioned the occasional strange comment or look. Until the day Amanda called me a fool and confirmed what I had begun to suspect: neither child was mine. I could have exploded right then, but instead I waited, planned, because sometimes justice needs the perfect stage. Before I share how my world collapsed, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you gave everything to. Trust me, what happened next changed everything. I always thought I had built something special. A blue-collar guy who started with nothing but a toolbox and determination. I remember the day I met Amanda like it was yesterday, though it was 24 years ago. I was 32, working on the electrical systems in a new office building. She walked in wearing a smart business suit, clipboard in hand, representing the pharmaceutical company that would occupy the top floor. "You might want to add another outlet over there," she suggested, pointing to a corner of the conference room. "That's where our presentation equipment will go." Her confidence caught me off guard. Most clients just let me do my job without input, but there was something refreshing about her directness. By the end of that job, I had found excuses to rewire several areas just to talk with her more. Our courtship wasn't fancy. I took her fishing at my favorite spot on the Columbia River. I taught her how to change the oil in her car. She showed me how to pair wine with different foods, something no one in my family had ever cared about. We balanced each other that way. The wedding was modest but meaningful. My construction buddies helped decorate the small venue, and her pharmaceutical colleagues brought enough champagne to float a battleship. We bought a fixer-upper house that I spent weekends renovating while Amanda climbed the corporate ladder. When Jackson was born 3 years into our marriage, I felt a completeness I never knew was possible. I would come home from work, hands still rough from a day pulling wire, and hold that tiny body against my chest. His dark hair didn't match my reddish brown, but the nurse said babies often change as they grow. "He has your determination," Amanda would say whenever Jackson spent hours trying to stack blocks higher than his previous record. Lily arrived 2 years after Jackson. A beautiful little girl with amber eyes that everyone said must have come from a grandparent, since neither Amanda nor I had that exact shade. I didn't think twice about it. As the kids grew, so did Amanda's career. She went from sales representative to district manager, then regional director. Each promotion meant longer hours, more business trips, but also a more comfortable life for our family. I picked up extra shifts and weekend emergency calls to make sure I was contributing my fair share. "Daddy, why do you have to work on Saturdays?" Lily would ask, her little face scrunched up in disappointment. "Because that's what daddies do, sweetheart. We take care of our families." I never complained about the sacrifice. Missing Jackson's soccer games or Lily's dance recitals hurt, but I told myself it was temporary. Once Amanda reached her career goals and the kids were older, we would have all the time in the world. As the years passed, I started noticing small things. How Jackson's academic intelligence seemed to come out of nowhere, given my average school performance, and Amanda's self-proclaimed struggles with advanced math. How Lily's natural grace and artistic abilities were nothing like my clumsy attempts at anything creative. "He must take after your father," Amanda would say about Jackson's aptitude for science. But my father had been a fisherman who could barely help me with 4th grade homework. Then there were the subtle ways the kids began treating me differently as they entered their teen years. Jackson rolling his eyes when I tried to help with his homework. Lily politely declining my offer to teach her to drive, waiting instead for Amanda's schedule to clear. "Dad, no offense, but Mom's car is automatic. Yours has that weird clutch thing," she explained, though I knew Amanda had been teaching her in my old pickup when they thought I was working late. There was a distance growing between us, but I blamed myself. I wasn't the college-educated parent. I didn't understand their advanced classes or social media obsessions. I was just the guy who kept the lights on and the roof from leaking. The first real suspicion came on a Tuesday evening. I had come home early after finishing a job ahead of schedule. Amanda was in our bedroom door, slightly ajar, talking on the phone, in a voice I rarely heard her use with me anymore. "I know I miss you too," she was saying, her tone soft and intimate. "The conference next month. Yes, I'll make sure we have adjoining rooms again." When she saw me standing in the hallway, she quickly ended the call. "Just work stuff," she said with a dismissive wave. "You know how demanding corporate can be." I nodded and headed to the shower, telling myself that her explanation made perfect sense. Regional directors probably had to be available at all hours. The knot in my stomach was just indigestion from the gas station burrito I'd had for lunch. I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. Until the following Sunday, when we were all having dinner together, a rare occasion with our conflicting schedules. Jackson was complaining about his biology class. "The teacher says I should have natural aptitude since my mom works in pharmaceuticals, but that gene thing doesn't make sense." "Well, clearly you didn't get your brains from your old man." Amanda laughed, then immediately tensed up, shooting a quick glance my way. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jackson looked confused. Lily suddenly became very interested in her mashed potatoes, and I felt something cold slide down my spine. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just a joke, Cliff." Amanda recovered quickly. "You know you're more hands-on than book-smart. Nothing wrong with that." The subject changed, but something had shifted. A door had cracked open, and I wasn't sure I wanted to see what was on the other side. The phone call and dinner comment could have been nothing. That's what I kept telling myself for weeks afterward. Marriages go through rough patches. Teenagers are difficult. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was wrong in my perfect family picture. I tried harder. Bought tickets to Jackson's favorite band. When they came to town, though, the music gave me a headache. Signed up for a pottery class with Lily making lopsided bowls while she effortlessly created beautiful vases. Planned a weekend getaway for just Amanda and me at the Coastal Bed and Breakfast, where we'd spent our 5th anniversary. "I can't just drop everything for a nostalgic trip, Clifford," Amanda said when I showed her the reservation. "The Wilson account is in a critical phase. Maybe next month." Next month became next season, then next year. We were like strangers sharing a house, our conversations limited to logistics about grocery lists and utility bills. The kids weren't any easier to reach. Jackson had grown into a lanky 16-year-old whose vocabulary seemed to consist mainly of grunts when I was around. Lily at 14 was more polite but equally distant, lost in her sketchbooks and online chats with friends I'd never met. Things came to a head one Thursday when I asked Jackson to help me clean the gutters, a chore we used to do together since he was old enough to hold the ladder. "Can't you just hire someone like normal people?" he snapped, not looking up from his phone. "I have a chemistry study group online in 20 minutes. When I was your age, I worked alongside my father without complaint," I said, feeling like every stereotypical dad in history. Part of growing up is learning practical skills and responsibility. Jackson finally looked up, his eyes narrowing. "Well, maybe if my real dad was around, he'd understand that my education is more important than climbing on a roof." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What did you just say?" His face flushed a mixture of defiance and something that looked almost like guilt. "Nothing. Forget it." "No, you said real dad." "What does that mean, Jackson?" "It doesn't mean anything." "God, you always take everything so literally. No wonder Mom says you don't understand her intellectual needs." He stormed off to his room, leaving me frozen in place, ladder in hand, wondering what conversations happened when I wasn't around, what intellectual needs my wife had discussed with our son that I apparently couldn't fulfill. That night, and I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house I'd spent years renovating seemed to mock me. Amanda slept soundly beside me, her back turned as usual. I studied her profile in the dim light from the window, trying to reconcile the woman I'd married with the stranger she'd become. The next morning, I met my buddies Dave and Larry for our monthly breakfast at Denny's, a tradition we'd maintained since our apprentice days. They noticed something was off immediately. "You look like hell warmed over Cliff," Dave said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Trouble at home." Larry, always more tactful, signaled the waitress for coffee before turning to me. "Everything okay with the family?" I considered brushing it off, saying something non-committal about work stress. Instead, I heard myself saying, "I think Amanda's having an affair." Once the words were out, I couldn't take them back. I told them everything: the phone call, the growing distance, Jackson's comment about his real dad. "Have you found any concrete evidence?" Larry asked, ever the practical one. "Like what lipstick on the collar?" "This isn't a TV show," I replied more sharply than intended. Dave leaned forward. "Credit card statements, phone records, unexplained absences. The classics work for a reason, buddy." I felt ridiculous even considering it. But that afternoon, while Amanda was at her yoga class, I found myself going through her desk drawer feeling like a criminal in my own home. Nothing unusual in the files of house documents and warranties. But when I checked the old shoebox where we kept receipts for tax purposes, I found something strange. Tucked among the mundane documentation for gas and groceries were receipts for items I'd never seen: a men's watch worth more than I made in a week. At restaurants, Amanda had never mentioned visiting hotel parking charges from weekends when she was supposedly at regional conferences. The evidence was circumstantial at best. The watch could have been for her father's birthday. The restaurants might have been business meals she forgot to mention. The parking charges could have legitimate explanations. But in my gut, I knew something wasn't right. The question was, how far was I willing to go to uncover a truth that might destroy everything I had spent nearly 2 decades building? Against every instinct telling me to preserve my dignity, I hired a private investigator. Frank was a retired cop who now specialized in matrimonial cases, his weathered face suggesting he'd seen every variation of human betrayal possible. 90% of my clients already know the truth," he told me in his small office above a print shop. "They're just looking for confirmation or details." "And the other 10%, I asked. "Find out they were wrong and go home relieved." I wrote him a check for the retainer, feeling like I was signing away the last shreds of trust in my marriage. For 2 weeks, Frank tracked Amanda's movements during her late meetings and client dinners. I carried on at home, a terrible actor in a play where I was the only one who didn't know all the lines. While waiting for Frank's findings, I conducted my own amateur investigation. One afternoon, when everyone was out, I opened the family computer to check our shared photo albums, looking for our last family vacation pictures to show a new coworker. What I found instead was a folder labeled Insurance Docs that contained no insurance information at all. Instead, it held dozens of photos of Amanda with a tall, silver-haired man I didn't recognize. Some were innocent enough group shots at what looked like company events, the man standing near Amanda among colleagues. Others showed just the two of them hiking in the Columbia River Gorge, dining at a waterfront restaurant, standing too close together at what appeared to be a hotel lobby. The man's name was in some of the file names: Greg, Amanda Boat Trip, JPG, Portland Symphony, Gregory, and me, JPG. Gregory. The name felt like acid in my mind. I copied the photos to a USB drive and closed the folder. Hearing the garage door open as Amanda returned from wherever she'd actually been. That same week, while searching for our homeowner's insurance policy in our bedroom closet, I discovered a small wooden box I'd never seen before, tucked behind Amanda's winter sweaters. Inside were letters and cards, their contents making my hands shake so badly I could barely read them. Missing you already. 4 weeks until Chicago. Last night was unforgettable. G. Some dated back over 15 years, around the time Jackson was conceived. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it, and walked outside to vomit in the side yard, bile burning my throat as my world collapsed around me. The final piece came from an unexpected source. I was driving Lily to her art class when she mentioned an upcoming school father-daughter dance. "Are you going to be in town for it?" she asked, staring out the passenger window. "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't miss it for anything." She nodded, still not looking at me. "Mom said you might be busy with that big electrical job in Seattle." There was no job in Seattle. I had mentioned possibly bidding on a commercial project there months ago, but had decided against it. "I'll definitely be here," I assured her. "Your mom must have confused it with something else." Lily fidgeted with her seatbelt. "It's okay if you can't come. Mom said maybe her special friend could take me instead. He took me to the Science Museum when you were working that weekend in Tacoma." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Special friend. You know Mom's friend from work, the one with the cool stories about traveling to Europe. He knows a lot about art. I kept my voice steady. "Does this friend have a name?" "Gregory, I think. He's nice. He helped me with my science project about pharmaceuticals last semester." I dropped Lily off at her class with a tight hug that confused her, then sat in my truck for 20 minutes trying to breathe through the pain crushing my chest. Frank's report came 2 days later, confirming everything I had pieced together myself. Amanda was indeed seeing someone named Gregory Whitman, her direct supervisor at the pharmaceutical company. Their affair, according to Frank's sources within the company, was an open secret among their colleagues and had been going on for years. The final confirmation came in a small envelope from an online DNA testing company. Using cheek swabs I had collected under the guise of participating in a family health study, from my work, the results were unequivocal. I had zero biological connection to either Jackson or Lily. The children I had raised, loved, and sacrificed for were not mine. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. My coworkers noticed, but I blamed it on a stomach bug that wouldn't quit. In reality, I was dying inside one revelation at a time. My older brother Thomas, visiting from Arizona, took one look at me and demanded to know what was happening. "You look like Dad did after Mom died," he said bluntly. "What's going on, little brother?" So I told him everything, showing him the DNA results, the photos, Frank's report. Thomas, divorced twice himself, listened without interruption, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What are you going to do about it?" I had no answer. Part of me wanted to explode, to confront Amanda and this Gregory person, to scream at them for stealing nearly 2 decades of my life. Another part wanted to pretend I knew nothing, to preserve what family life I had left with the children I still loved, regardless of biology. "You need to confront her," Thomas advised. "But first protect yourself, financially, legally. This Gregory guy sounds like he has resources. Don't go in unprepared." Following his advice, I checked our financial records and discovered another betrayal. Amanda had a separate bank account I knew nothing about, with regular deposits coming from a source labeled only as GW Consulting. Gregory Whitman providing for his secret family, while I worked 60-hour weeks to keep our mortgage paid. The weight of these discoveries was crushing me. I knew I couldn't continue living this lie much longer. It was time to face Amanda with what I knew. The confrontation happened on a Tuesday night after the kids had gone to bed. Amanda was in her home office working on what she claimed was a presentation for an upcoming conference. I knocked on the door frame, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Got a minute?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. She looked up, surprised. We hadn't shared a quiet moment together in months. "Sure, just let me save this." I set her glass down and took the chair across from her desk, feeling like I was at a business meeting rather than a conversation with my wife. "I've been doing some thinking," I began. "About us, about the family." She took a sip of wine, her expression guarded. "What about us?" I placed the DNA test results on the desk between us. "I know Amanda." Her face didn't change immediately. She glanced at the paper, then back at me, a practiced, neutral expression that must have served her well in corporate negotiations. "Know what exactly?" she asked, but her fingers tightened around the wine glass. "I know that Jackson and Lily aren't my biological children. I know about Gregory Whitman. I know about the affair that's apparently been going on since before our son was born." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for years. Amanda set down her wineglass very carefully, as if afraid it might shatter in her grip. "How long have you known?" she finally asked, not bothering to deny anything. "Does it matter weeks, months? I've suspected something was wrong for longer." She leaned back in her chair, studying me like I was a problem to solve. "And now what? You want a divorce, custody battles, public embarrassment for all of us, including the children." Her calm calculation infuriated me more than any angry denial would have. "What I want is to understand how you could lie to me for 16 years. How you could let me raise another man's children believing they were mine." A flicker of something crossed her face, too quick to identify. "Would you have loved them less if you'd known?" "That's not the point, and you know it," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "You took away my choice. You and Gregory decided my life for me. Gregory wanted me to leave you years ago," she said, and the casualness of the statement felt like a slap. "I'm the one who wanted to keep our family intact. I thought it was best for everyone." "Best for everyone," I echoed. "Or most convenient for you two." Amanda stood up, pacing the small office. "You wouldn't understand. Gregory and I connect on a level that you and I never could. Intellectually, professionally. We share goals and ambitions. And that justifies lying to me for our entire marriage. I never planned for things to happen this way," she said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "Gregory and I met at a conference the first year I started at the company. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but we couldn't stay away from each other. When I found out I was pregnant with Jackson, I wasn't sure at first. But you let me believe he was mine." The betrayal cut deeper with each word she spoke. "You were so happy about the baby," she said, as if that explained everything. "And Gregory was married at the time. It seemed kinder to let you think Jackson was yours. Then, when Lily came along—" "Another kindness," I said bitterly. Amanda stopped pacing and faced me. "What would you have done differently if you'd known, left me abandoned the children? You've been a good father to them, Clifford. No one can take that away from you." "Except you are taking it away," I replied. "You and Gregory have been planning something. Another life that doesn't include me." A flash of surprise crossed her face. "How did you—" "I'm not as much of a fool as you think I am," I said, though clearly I had been. "When are you planning to leave after the promotion you've been hinting about?" "Once Jackson graduates." Amanda's shoulders sagged slightly, the first genuine reaction I'd seen. "Gregory's wife passed away last year. He's taking a position heading up the East Coast Division. The promotion they're announcing next month is mine to run the Northwest Territory. We thought—" After my celebration dinner, we would tell you and the kids about our plans to relocate to Boston. The calculated timing stunned me. So you were going to use your promotion dinner to announce you're leaving me and taking my family across the country? They're Gregory's children, Clifford, she said, her voice suddenly cold. You were always too much of a fool to notice. Gregory has the brains and status I wanted for my children. He can provide opportunities you never could. In that moment, I saw Amanda clearly, for perhaps the first time in our marriage. Not the ambitious woman I'd fallen in love with, but someone capable of calculating cruelty of engineering nearly 2 decades of deception without remorse. When is this promotion dinner? I asked, my voice steady, despite the storm inside me. 3 weeks from Saturday. The company's renting out the penthouse at the Marquis downtown. She eyed me suspiciously. Why? I stood up, gathering the DNA results. Just want to make sure I'm available to attend my wife's big achievement. As I turned to leave, Amanda called after me. What are you going to do, Clifford? I looked back at the stranger who wore my wife's face. Nothing that would embarrass the children. Unlike some people in this room, I actually care about their well-being. I closed the door behind me and walked to our bedroom, where I began silently packing an overnight bag. I needed space to think, to plan. Because while Amanda and Gregory had been orchestrating their perfect future, they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated the man they'd been fooling all these years. For the next 3 weeks, I performed the greatest acting role of my life. I went to work, came home, ate dinner with my family, when schedules aligned, and pretended I hadn't discovered that my entire life was built on a foundation of lies. Amanda watched me warily at first, then with increasing confidence, as days passed without me telling the children or making dramatic scenes. She probably thought I was in denial, or that I had accepted my fate as collateral damage in her grand life plan. What she didn't know was that I was meticulously documenting everything and consulting with a lawyer named Michael Brannigan, a high school friend, who specialized in family law. Maine is not a state that considers non-biological parents to have natural rights to children, especially when the biological father is in the picture and was never uninvolved by choice, Michael explained during our first consultation. But there are other factors courts consider, like your role in their upbringing and the children's ages. I don't want to drag the kids through a custody battle, I told him. They're teenagers, not toddlers. I just want to make sure I don't lose them entirely when Amanda takes them to Boston. Michael nodded sympathetically. Let's focus on protecting your financial interests then. How much have you contributed to the household over the years? I had brought documentation, mortgage payments, renovations to increase the house value, college funds I'd established for both children, working overtime to support Amanda during her early career when her salary was modest. You've been the primary contributor to the mortgage despite her higher salary in recent years, Michael observed, reviewing my records. And these college accounts are solely in your name. I started them before the kids were born. Amanda always said she'd contribute when she reached a certain position, but somehow that position kept changing. Michael made notes. What about this joint account, with regular transfers to separate accounts in the children's names? Monthly allowances and savings I set up when they turned 13, teaching them financial responsibility. The picture emerging wasn't just of a deceived husband, but of financial manipulation that had gone on for years. Amanda's separate account, the contributions from GW Consulting, the fact that my income had gone primarily to household expenses while hers built her personal wealth. There's something else, I told Michael, hesitating before sharing my most recent discovery. I think Amanda and Gregory may be involved in something illegal at their company. While searching for more information about Gregory Whitman, I had found spreadsheets on our home computer detailing pharmaceutical shipments and sales that didn't match the official records I found in Amanda's work briefcase. The discrepancies suggested inventory manipulation, possibly related to prescription medications with street value. "I'm not an expert in corporate fraud," Michael said, after reviewing the documents, "but these certainly raise questions. Have you considered taking this information to her company?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to understand more first." Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered evidence methodically. I recorded conversations with Amanda when she thought I was just trying to work things out. I documented the children's schedules and my involvement in their lives. I backed up suspicious financial records and emails I found on our shared devices, all while maintaining the facade of a husband coming to terms with the end of his marriage. "Dad, are you okay?" Lily asked one evening, finding me staring at old family photos in the living room. "You seem sad lately." I smiled at my daughter, this beautiful girl I had raised from infancy. Biology be damned, she was mine in all the ways that mattered. "Just feeling a bit nostalgic, sweetheart. You and Jackson are growing up so fast. Mom says we might move for her new job, to Boston." Lily's voice was uncertain. "Would you come too?" The innocent question broke my heart. She didn't know what her mother was planning. "We'll figure everything out as a family," I said, unable to lie to her directly, but unwilling to shatter her world before I had to. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during years of family focus. Dave and Larry became my lifelines, meeting me for beers, never judging when I needed to vent, or sitting in understanding silence when words failed me. My brother Thomas called daily from Arizona, offering both emotional support and practical advice. "Document everything. Record every conversation legally. Find allies at her company if you can." Following his suggestion, I reached out to Sandra, Amanda's former assistant, who had always been friendly to me at company events. Over coffee, I learned that Amanda and Gregory's relationship was indeed common knowledge at the pharmaceutical company, along with rumors about inventory discrepancies that had prompted internal audits. "The promotion announcement next week has raised some eyebrows," Sandra confided. "Amanda hasn't been with the company as long as others who were passed over. Some think Gregory pulled strings." I asked careful questions about who would attend the promotion dinner, learning that the company's CEO and board members would be there along with key clients and regulatory contacts. The perfect audience for what I was planning. As the dinner approached, I prepared meticulously. I had my evidence organized, my speech rehearsed, and my exit strategy planned. I wasn't looking for revenge exactly, but for justice and the chance to reclaim my dignity in the face of profound betrayal. The night before the dinner, I sat alone in our backyard looking at the treehouse I had built when Jackson was 7. The swing set I had installed for Lily's 5th birthday. The garden beds Amanda and I had planted together in happier times. Tomorrow would change everything. But unlike Amanda and Gregory, who had orchestrated changes behind my back for years, I would bring truth into the light. The Marquis Hotel's penthouse ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Portland's skyline. Men in expensive suits and women in cocktail dresses mingled, champagne glasses in hand, the air humming with conversation and soft jazz from a trio in the corner. I arrived early, dressed in the new suit I had purchased for the occasion. Not my usual style, but tonight wasn't about being comfortable. It was about being seen and taken seriously by a crowd that had probably dismissed me as the simple electrician married to the rising star pharmaceutical executive. Amanda was already there, radiant in a deep blue dress, working the room with practiced charm. She faltered momentarily when she saw me, then recovered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You clean up nicely," she said, air kissing my cheek for appearances. "I wasn't sure you'd come." And miss your big moment, what kind of husband would I be? The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Gregory Whitman stood across the room, distinguished in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. Silver-haired and patrician he was, everything I wasn't: polished, academic, wealthy by inheritance as well as career. He nodded in my direction, a gesture somewhere between acknowledgement and condescension. Jackson and Lily arrived shortly after me, dressed for the formal occasion, and immediately gravitating toward Gregory, who greeted them with the easy familiarity of a man comfortable in his role as their secret father. Watching them laugh at something he said, I felt a stab of pain so acute I had to turn away. "Quite the family picture," a voice said beside me. I turned to find an older man observing the same scene, his expression unreadable. "Excuse me." He extended his hand. "Walter Kincaid, CEO of Northridge Pharmaceuticals. You must be Clifford Amanda's husband." I shook his hand, noting the shrewd assessment in his eyes. "That's right. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Amanda speaks highly of your support through her career," he said, though something in his tone suggested skepticism. "Not every man is secure enough to champion his wife's success. I believe in recognizing people's true contributions," I replied carefully. "In business and in life." Walter's eyebrows rose slightly at my emphasis. "Indeed. A philosophy we value at Northridge as well. Perhaps that's why tonight's announcement has been anticipated with such interest." Before I could respond, Amanda appeared at Walter's elbow. "I see you've met my husband," she said, linking her arm through mine in a show of unity that made my skin crawl. "Just getting acquainted," Walter replied. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check in with the event coordinator about the presentation timing." As he moved away, Amanda's grip on my arm tightened painfully. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing of consequence," I said mildly. "Just making small talk." She studied my face, searching for clues to my intentions. "Clifford, please don't make a scene tonight. This is important for my career, for all our futures." "By all, you mean you, Gregory, and the children?" Her lips thinned. "You know what I mean. We can handle our personal matters privately after tonight." "Of course," I agreed, the picture of reasonableness. "Tonight is about celebrating your achievement." Somewhat reassured, Amanda released my arm and returned to her networking, casting occasional glances in my direction as I moved through the crowd, introducing myself to her colleagues and industry contacts. Dinner was served at elegantly set tables, Amanda at the head table with Gregory, Walter, and other executives. I was seated at a secondary table with various spouses and less important company figures, an arrangement that would have offended me once but now served my purposes perfectly. After the meal came the speeches. Walter praised the company's growth and innovation. A board member discussed market challenges and opportunities. Then Gregory took the podium to announce Amanda's promotion. "It gives me particular pleasure to introduce our new Northwest Territory Director," he said, his cultured voice carrying effortlessly through the room. "Someone who exemplifies the values and vision of Northridge Pharmaceuticals. Someone I have personally mentored and whose growth I have witnessed firsthand." The double meaning wasn't lost on me, nor on several colleagues who exchanged knowing glances. "Please join me in congratulating Amanda Harrington on this well-deserved advancement." Applause filled the room as Amanda took the stage, embracing Gregory with a familiarity that crossed professional boundaries. I forced myself to clap along, watching my wife bask in her moment of triumph. "Thank you, Gregory, for your guidance and belief in me." She began her practiced speech, hitting all the expected notes about gratitude, vision, and commitment. When she reached the personal acknowledgments, she paused, finding me in the audience. "I want to thank my husband Clifford for his unwavering support throughout my career. Many of you know him as the quiet presence at company events, but at home he's been the foundation that made my professional journey possible. The calculated insincerity of it almost made me laugh. Almost. "Clifford, would you stand and be recognized?" Amanda continued, a challenge in her eyes. She thought she was calling my bluff, forcing me to either make a scene or tacitly accept her narrative. I stood, acknowledging the polite applause with a nod. Amanda's smile tightened imperceptibly. "In fact," she added, improvising, "perhaps my husband would like to say a few words about our journey together." It was a power move designed to limit my options, to frame any potential revelation I might make as the bitter ramblings of a jealous spouse. But she had inadvertently given me exactly the opening I needed. "I'd be honored," I said, making my way to the podium as Amanda stepped aside, confidence radiating from her as she thought she'd outmaneuvered me. I took a moment to look out at the assembled crowd, at Jackson and Lily, watching with mild embarrassment, as teenagers do when parents take the spotlight. At Gregory, standing nearby with a benevolent smile that didn't reach his calculating eyes. At Amanda, whose expression of wifely pride was betrayed by the tension in her shoulders. "For those who don't know me, I'm Clifford Harrington," I began. "Electrician, husband, and father. Not usually one for public speaking, but tonight is special." I paused, feeling the weight of 18 years of deception about to end. "I want to start by congratulating Amanda on her promotion. No one who knows her would be surprised by her success. Her determination and strategic thinking have been evident throughout our marriage." Amanda relaxed slightly, thinking I was following the expected script. "Many of you have worked with Amanda for years," I continued. "Some of you have been part of her story even longer than I realized." A subtle shift rippled through the audience. Gregory's smile faltered. "I recently discovered something remarkable about my family," I said, my voice steady. "Something that Amanda and her mentor Gregory have known for many years, but never shared with me." Amanda stepped forward as if to interrupt, but I continued before she could speak. "I learned that the two wonderful children I've raised as my own are actually the biological children of Gregory Whitman." A collective intake of breath filled the room. Jackson and Lily's faces transformed from teenage boredom to shock. Gregory went rigid. I also discovered that the inventory discrepancies in the Northwest Territory weren't accounting errors, but deliberate manipulations orchestrated by Amanda and Gregory to inflate their performance metrics and facilitate the diversion of certain profitable pharmaceuticals. Walter Kincaid straightened in his seat, his expression darkening. Other executives exchanged alarmed glances. I removed a USB drive from my pocket. "This contains documentation of both personal and professional deceptions. Copies have been provided to appropriate parties, including the company's compliance department and board of directors." Amanda lunged for the podium. "He's lying. This is the vindictive response of a man who couldn't handle my success." "Actually," Walter Kincaid's voice cut through the chaos as he stood, "we've been investigating these allegations for several weeks. Mr. Harrington approached our compliance team with concerns that, unfortunately, our internal audit has substantiated. Two men in dark suits appeared at the ballroom entrance, their purpose unmistakable even without visible badges. "How dare you?" Amanda hissed at me. "After everything I've done for you." "Done for me," I repeated incredulously. "You stole 18 years of my life with lies. You let me raise another man's children without my knowledge or consent. You and Gregory planned to take them across the country without any consideration for the relationship I've built with them." I turned back to the stunned audience. "I don't expect everyone to understand my personal situation, but I believe in truth and accountability professionally and personally." My eyes found Jackson and Lily, their faces pale with shock. I want my children to know that despite everything I have loved them from the moment I first held them, and nothing about tonight changes that love. Biology doesn't define family. Love and commitment do. Gregory finally found his voice. This is outrageous. You have no right to expose personal matters in this forum. Perhaps not, I acknowledged. But then you had no right to my wife or to let me raise your children under false pretenses. We all make choices we have to live with. I stepped away from the podium, my piece said. The room erupted in chaotic conversation as Amanda and Gregory were discreetly escorted to a side room by Walter and the security personnel. I made my way to Jackson and Lily, who sat frozen at their table. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way, I told them quietly. I would have preferred to tell you privately, but events forced my hand. Is it true? Jackson asked, his voice cracking. Gregory is our actual father. Biologically, yes. But I'm the one who taught you to ride a bike, who cheered at your science fairs, who loved you every day of your life. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Did you know all this time? No, sweetheart. I just found out recently. Finding out the truth doesn't change how I feel about either of you. Security was now moving through the room, asking guests to depart, as the evening had concluded, due to unforeseen circumstances. I touched each child's shoulder gently. I'll be staying at Uncle Thomas's condo downtown for a while. You can call or visit any time. I'll always be your dad no matter what happens next. As I walked out of the ballroom past the whispers and stares, I felt a weight lifting. The truth had finally been spoken aloud, and whatever came next, I would face it with the dignity that Amanda and Gregory had denied me for 18 years. The aftermath of the promotion dinner bombshell unfolded like a series of aftershocks, each one shifting the landscape of our lives in unexpected ways. Amanda was terminated from Northridge Pharmaceuticals the following morning. Gregory was placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation into the inventory discrepancies. By week's end, both were cooperating with a broader investigation that implicated several others in what turned out to be a sophisticated scheme to divert controlled substances to unauthorized channels. I moved into my brother's downtown condo, giving the family home space while everyone processed the revelations. The first days were the hardest. The silence of my phone, the absence of familiar household sounds, the knowledge that everything had irrevocably changed. On the third day, Amanda's lawyer contacted mine. She wanted to discuss divorce terms quietly to minimize further publicity around a situation already generating industry gossip. I agreed with specific conditions regarding my continued relationship with Jackson and Lily. You're in a stronger negotiating position than you might think, Michael told me during our strategy session. Amanda and Gregory are facing potential criminal charges. The last thing they want is a messy public divorce trial where more of their activities might come to light. We crafted a settlement proposal that was fair financially but firm on my access to the children. I would relinquish claims to the family home in exchange for Amanda not contesting my visitation rights or relationship with Jackson and Lily, regardless of where they ultimately lived. The children's reactions varied day by day, sometimes hour by hour. Jackson avoided me initially, angry not just at the disruption to his life, but at the public nature of the revelation. You could have told us privately, he texted on the 5th day, my first communication from him since that night. Everyone at school is talking about it. Someone's parents were at the dinner. You're right, I replied. I'm sorry for how it happened. I never wanted to hurt you. Lily was more direct, showing up at the condo unannounced one afternoon, her eyes red from crying. Why didn't you just leave when you found out? She demanded. Why did you have to ruin everything? The question cut deep, but I understood it came from pain rather than genuine accusation. Because running away wouldn't have been right, I explained. For me or for you and Jackson. You deserved the truth even though the timing was terrible. We sat in Thomas's living room, the city spread out below us through floor-to-ceiling windows, talking more honestly than we ever had. About her confusion over having two fathers in her life without knowing it. About her fears for the future if her mother and Gregory faced legal consequences. About whether I would still want to be part of her life. "You're my dad," she said finally, her voice small. "Not because of DNA or whatever, but because you're the one who was there. Always." Her words were the first real healing in a sea of pain. The weeks that followed brought significant changes. Amanda accepted a plea deal that required cooperation, but avoided jail time. Gregory wasn't as fortunate, his deeper involvement resulting in more serious consequences. Their plans to relocate to Boston evaporated like morning dew. I found a small apartment near my favorite fishing spot, a one-bedroom place that hardly compared to the family home I'd renovated over years, but it was mine, honest and simple, like the life I was rebuilding. I filled it with only the possessions that held genuine meaning. My father's fishing tackle box, photos of the children through the years, the handmade coffee table Jackson and I had built together when he was 12. Depression crept in during quiet evenings when the reality of all I had lost overwhelmed me. The family I thought I had. The future I had planned. The identity I had built as husband and father in a traditional sense. "You need to give yourself permission to grieve," my brother advised during one particularly dark weekend. "You lost something real, even if it was built on something false." I tried various ways to heal, returned to the carpentry projects I had enjoyed before marriage consumed my weekends, volunteered at a community center teaching basic electrical skills to at-risk youth, reconnected with my fishing buddies for dawn expeditions on the Columbia River. Slowly, incrementally, life took on new rhythms. Jackson began stopping by occasionally initially, with the transparent excuse of needing help with his truck maintenance later, with more honest conversation about his confusion and anger, not just at me, but at his mother and biological father. "I don't know who I am anymore," he confessed one evening as we changed the oil in his pickup. "Everything I thought about my life was a lie." "Not everything," I countered. "Your intelligence, your determination, your compassion for others, those are real. You built those qualities yourself regardless of whose genes you carry." Lily proved more resilient, integrating the new reality into her identity with the adaptability of youth. She insisted on splitting her time between the family home where Amanda remained and my apartment, converting the small dining alcove into her space with an easel and art supplies. "Dad, you need plants," she declared on her third visit, arriving with potted ferns and succulents. "This place is too sterile." The fact that she still called me Dad, without hesitation, was a gift I never took for granted. The first holiday season alone was both harder and easier than I expected. Harder in the absence of traditions I had valued, easier in the freedom from pretense. I hosted a small Thanksgiving dinner for friends who had supported me through the darkest days, Dave and Larry, and their wives, my brother Thomas, and his new girlfriend, a few work buddies who had checked on me regularly. "To truth," Dave toasted, raising his beer bottle, "and to the strongest SOB I know. To new beginnings," Thomas added more diplomatically, "and family you choose." Christmas brought an unexpected development. Jackson arrived at my door unannounced on Christmas Eve, duffel bag in hand. "Mom's having Gregory over," he said by way of explanation. "I told her I wasn't ready for that. Can I crash here?" We stayed up late watching old movies and talking about his college applications. When he finally fell asleep on my couch, I sat watching him, this young man, who shared none of my DNA, but all of my heart. The new year brought another unexpected connection. While attending a community fundraiser where I'd volunteered to handle electrical safety, I met Susan, a widow whose pragmatic warmth reminded me of my mother. Our conversation moved easily from the proper wiring of holiday lights to favorite hiking trails to the challenges of starting over midlife. Reinvention isn't for the faint of heart, she observed over coffee the following week. But there's something freeing about discovering who you are without all the roles you thought defined you. Her perspective helped me see my journey differently, not just as recovery from betrayal, but as an opportunity to rediscover parts of myself that had been submerged in the identity of husband and provider. Spring brought Amanda's formal sentencing, a suspended sentence, and community service that felt simultaneously inadequate and excessive depending on which aspect of her betrayal I focused on. We spoke briefly outside the courthouse, our first direct conversation in months. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said, an echo of her earlier justifications. "But you let it continue for 18 years. I replied not with anger, but with the sadness of acceptance. "That wasn't fate, Amanda. That was choice." She nodded, unable to maintain eye contact. "The kids miss you at the house, especially Lily. They know where to find me. My door is always open to them." As summer approached, Jackson graduated high school with honors, accepting a scholarship to the State University's engineering program. At the ceremony, I sat with Lily, while Amanda sat several rows away. Gregory was notably absent, his legal troubles preventing attendance. "Both my parents came," Jackson said afterward, including me without qualification, as he introduced his friend group to my dad and my mom separately. By the one-year anniversary of the revelation, life had settled into new patterns. I had been promoted at work, taking on more commercial projects that challenged my skills. Susan and I continued our friendship that occasionally ventured into romance territory, both of us cautious but optimistic. Most importantly, I had maintained and even strengthened my relationships with Jackson and Lily, who increasingly sought my counsel as they navigated their own complicated feelings about Amanda and Gregory. "How did you forgive Mom?" Lily asked one evening as we walked along the riverfront. "I'm still so angry sometimes." I considered the question carefully. I'm not sure forgiveness is the right word. I've accepted what happened and chosen to focus on what matters most, which includes you and your brother. Holding on to anger just keeps me trapped in the past. "But what she and Gregory did was wrong," she insisted. "Don't you want them to pay for it?" "They are paying, sweetheart, just not in ways that are obvious. Your mother lost the respect of her colleagues, her career trajectory, and most importantly, the trust of her children. Gregory lost his freedom temporarily and his reputation permanently. But more than that, they both have to live with the consequences of their choices. And you, I'm building something new, something honest. There's power in that." She looped her arm through mine as we continued walking, this beautiful young woman who would always be my daughter in the ways that truly mattered. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had ultimately forced me to find a strength I never knew I possessed. The lies that had shaped nearly 2 decades of my life had finally given way to a truth that, while painful, allowed for authentic connections and genuine growth. I had lost a life built on deception, but gained one grounded in integrity. And in the end, that was a trade I could not regret. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led to something better? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Sometimes our most painful moments become our greatest turning points. If my journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And remember, true strength isn't about never falling down, It's about how you rise afterward. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find peace and dignity in whatever challenges you're facing right now.